The wedding exploded. Not metaphorically. Actually exploded. The sound of shattering glass and screaming guests filled the garden as Naomi opened her mouth to speak. But before she could say a word, before she could save Jin-woo or condemn herself, the world erupted in chaos. A black SUV crashed through the garden gates, tires screeching, armed men pouring out like a flood. Gunfire cracked through the perfect afternoon. The 300 wedding guests scattered like leaves in a storm. And Jin-woo, still holding Yoon hand at the altar, looked directly at Naomi with an expression that said, "Run." But she couldn't run. Because in the chaos, in the screaming and the gunfire and the absolute pandemonium, Naomi saw something that made her blood freeze. Yoon wasn't scared. She was smiling. The same smile Naomi had seen 30 minutes ago when Yoon had been standing outside the groom's dressing room door. When she'd heard everything. Every whispered confession. Every desperate kiss. Every word of love that wasn't meant for her. Yoon had been listening the entire time. And now she was getting her revenge. Welcome back to True Soul Stories. If you watch part 1, then you already know things spiraled fast. But what happens next? Nobody is ready for it. Before we dive into the chaos, hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to go places that will leave you absolutely speechless. Trust me, you need to see how this ends. Let's get into it. 35 minutes earlier, Naomi had left Jin-woo's dressing room with tears streaming down her face and his tie perfectly fixed. Her hands still trembled from his kiss. Her heart still ached from his confession. "I love you. I love you too." Words that changed everything and nothing. Words spoken 20 minutes before he'd marry someone else. She'd made it 3 steps down the hallway when she heard it. A sharp intake of breath from around the corner. The rustle of expensive fabric. The click of designer heels quickly retreating. Someone had been there. Someone had heard. Naomi's blood went cold. She rushed to the corner, looked both ways down the corridor, but saw only empty hallway. Whoever it was had vanished. But she'd heard them. Clear as day. She should have gone back. Should have told Jin-woo. Should have warned him that their private moment might not have been so private. But the wedding was in 15 minutes. Staff were rushing everywhere. Mrs. Kim was calling her name, demanding she get to her station. And Naomi convinced herself she'd imagined it. Paranoia from stress and heartbreak and impossible decisions. She was wrong. Because Yoon had heard everything. The bride had come to Jin-woo's dressing room to give him a family heirloom. Cufflinks that tradition demanded he wear. She'd been standing outside his door, hand raised to knock, when she'd heard voices inside. Naomi's voice. "We shouldn't be doing this." Jin-woo's voice. "I know. But I can't marry her without telling you the truth." Yoon had frozen, pressed herself against the wall, and listened to the man she was about to marry confess his love to the help. Listen to them kiss. Listen to them promise things that should have belonged to her. When Naomi fled the room, Yoon had ducked into an adjacent corridor, her mind racing, her carefully constructed plans suddenly requiring adjustment. She'd known Jin-woo didn't love her. That was fine. Love was for peasants and poets. She was marrying him for his empire, his connections, his money. But the maid? The American maid with her cheap shoes and secondhand clothes? That was an insult. A humiliation. An obstacle that needed to be removed. Yoon had smiled then. A cold, calculating smile. If Jin-woo wanted to play games, if he wanted to pine after the help, then the timeline would have to accelerate. The poison was already in his system. She'd been slipping it into his vitamins for 3 months. But she'd been patient, willing to play the role of dutiful wife for 6 months, while the poison slowly destroyed him from the inside. Not anymore. Now, she'd make him suffer in different ways first. She'd returned to her dressing room and made a phone call to her cousin, the one who'd helped her plan the backup assassination. The contingency plan they'd hoped never to use. Move up the timeline, Yoon had said. Attack during the ceremony. Make it bloody. Make it public. And make sure the maid doesn't survive. Are you certain? This will cause a war. I don't care about war. I care about what's mine. Do it. The call had ended. And Yoon had touched up her makeup, adjusted her veil, and prepared to walk down the aisle toward a man she planned to destroy. All because he'd whispered "I love you" to someone else. Present moment. The attack. Now, watching the chaos unfold, Yoon's smile widened. Everything was going according to her revised plan. The attackers would kill Jin-woo in front of everyone. The maid would be caught in the crossfire, a tragic victim of gang violence. And Yoon would play the devastated widow, inheriting everything while her family consolidated power. Perfect. She hadn't counted on Naomi being insane enough to run toward the gunfire. Hadn't counted on the maid taking a bullet meant for Jin Woo. Hadn't counted on Jin Woo's hidden security detail arriving so quickly. And she definitely hadn't counted on Jin Woo's expression when he looked at her after Naomi gasped out the truth about the poison. That look promised death. Calm, Jin Woo said to his security chief, his voice deadly calm even as he held Naomi's bleeding body. Secure, Miss Song. If she moves, shoot her. Not to kill, to hurt. Jin Woo, you can't be serious. Yoon Seo started, dropping the facade of fear, showing the calculation beneath. I said shut up. His roar silenced the entire garden. Yoon Seo realized then that she'd made a catastrophic miscalculation. She'd thought Jin Woo was soft, weakened by emotion, made vulnerable by love. She'd been wrong. Love had made him dangerous, and she was about to pay for underestimating him. The lead attacker, seeing his employer's plan falling apart, aimed at Jin Woo again. Touching, but we still have a job to do. That's when the Real security arrived. Not Jin Woo's wedding security. His actual security. The kind that didn't wear nice suits and smile at guests. The kind that emerged from shadows with the cold efficiency of apex predators who'd been tracking the attack since the SUV entered the city limits. 20 men, armed with weapons that made the attackers' guns look like children's toys, moving with the coordination of a special forces unit. The lead attacker's confidence evaporated. Shit. Fall back. Fall back. But there was nowhere to fall back to. Jin Woo's people had surrounded them, cut off every exit, turned the garden into a kill box. The attackers tried to fight, tried to escape, tried to surrender. None of it mattered. Within 90 seconds, every attacker was on the ground, most dead, a few unconscious and zip-tied, all of them neutralized with brutal efficiency. Get a medic, Jin Woo was shouting, his hands pressed against Naomi's shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding that was turning her white uniform crimson. Now, sir, we need to move you to a secure location, Kong said urgently. This could be a diversion. There could be more. I'm not leaving her. Sir, that's an order. Give me a doctor, or I'll shoot you myself. Two of Jin Woo's people dragged Yoon Seo away from the altar. She struggled, her mask finally completely gone, showing nothing but rage. You ungrateful bastard, she screamed at Jin Woo. I was going to make you powerful. I was going to give you everything. You were going to kill me, Jin Woo said without looking at her, his entire focus on Naomi's pale, pain-racked face. And you were stupid enough to tell your accomplices where they could be overheard. She's a maid, a nobody, and you threw everything away for her. No, I threw away a poisoned future for a real one. Now he did look at Yoon Seo, and his eyes were empty of everything except cold purpose. Take her to the basement. Find out who else was involved. Use whatever methods necessary. Yoon Seo's face went white. You can't. My family, your family just tried to assassinate me at my own wedding. I don't think they're in a position to make demands. Jin Woo's smile was sharp as broken glass. Maybe you'll survive the interrogation. Maybe you won't. Either way, I'll make sure your family knows exactly what you did. Let them decide if you're worth starting a war over. They dragged her away, screaming threats and curses that echoed through the ruined garden. Naomi's vision was going dark around the edges. She could hear voices, some panicked, some authoritative, all distant like she was underwater. The pain in her shoulder had gone from fire to a strange, cold numbness that was somehow worse. Her last clear thought before unconsciousness claimed her. Asterisk, I saved him. Whatever happens now, I saved him. And he knows I love him. Asterisk. Then darkness. If you're still watching, hit that like button right now, because this story just went from 0 to 100 and we're not slowing down. Things are about to get even more intense. 5 hours later, Naomi woke to white walls, beeping machines, and the worst pain she'd ever felt in her life. Don't move. Jin Woo's voice, rough from stress or shouting or both. The bullet went through clean exit wound. You're going to be fine. She turned her head, slowly, everything hurt, and saw him sitting beside her hospital bed. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 5 hours. His wedding suit was covered in her blood. His hair was disheveled. His eyes were red-rimmed. But he was there, solid and real and alive. The wedding, she croaked, is over. Definitively over. His laugh was bitter, exhausted. Between the attack and the poisoning accusations and you getting shot, I think it's safe to say I'm not getting married today. Yoon Seo is in custody. My custody, not the police. We found the poison exactly where you said it would be, hidden in my vitamin supplements. 3 months worth of evidence. His jaw clenched so hard she could see the muscle jump. You were right. About everything. She's been planning to kill me since before we even got engaged. The marriage was always just a way to get close enough to murder me slowly. I'm sorry. You're sorry. He stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You took a bullet for me, and you're apologizing? I ruined your wedding. You saved my life. His voice broke. Do you understand that? You saved my life twice in one day. Once from poison I didn't know about. Once from a bullet I didn't see coming. You almost died for me. And you're apologizing about a wedding I never wanted to a woman who was literally trying to murder me. Your father can go to hell, along with the Song family and their alliances and their territory deals and every single expectation that's been crushing me since I was old enough to understand what the family business really meant. He took her hand carefully, mindful of the 4 lines. None of it matters. None of it ever mattered. You matter. You almost died for me. You would have done the same. Yes, but I'm a criminal with a death wish and nothing to lose. He stopped, struggled with words. You're everything good I've never deserved. Your hope and kindness and bravery, and you almost died because I was too much of a coward to fight for you when it mattered. Naomi wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, but exhaustion and pain medication were pulling her under like a tide she couldn't fight. The attackers. Who were they? Song family soldiers. Yunesio's backup plan. She heard us, in the dressing room. Jin Woo's expression went dark. She was outside the door, heard everything we said, every word, every kiss, everything. Naomi's breath caught. I thought I heard someone. I thought I was imagining it. You weren't. She heard us confess our feelings and decided to accelerate her timeline. If the poison didn't work fast enough, the assassins would finish the job at the wedding. Make it look like a rival gang. Either way, she got my empire and I got a coffin. His hand tightened on hers. She told us everything during interrogation. How hearing us together made her furious enough to throw away the careful plan. How she wanted you dead for daring to touch what she considered hers. That's insane. That's obsession with power. She never loved me. Never even liked me. But she couldn't stand that I loved someone else. That I chose you. He leaned closer. Here's the thing, though. Here's what she didn't understand, and my father still doesn't understand. I was never the real target in any of this. What do you mean? My father arranged the marriage. Signed the contracts. Pressured me into it. And now, thanks to you, we know why. Jin Woo's smile was sharp and dangerous. The Song family and my father have been planning a merger for 2 years. A hostile takeover disguised as a wedding alliance. I was supposed to die. Yunesio was supposed to inherit as my widow, and my father was supposed to get 40% of the combined empire in exchange for his cooperation. Naomi's eyes went wide. Your father tried to have you killed? Not directly. But he knew. He had to know about the poison, about the backup plan, about all of it. Jin Woo's voice was cold. Which means everything changes now. The rules, the alliances, the family structure. All of it burns. What are you going to do? I'm going to destroy everyone who tried to kill me. Everyone who thought I was weak enough to be a pawn. Everyone who underestimated what I'd do to protect you. His eyes met hers, and she saw something there she'd never seen before. Not trapped resignation. Not defeated acceptance. But fury and purpose and freedom. I'm going to burn it all down and build something new from the ashes. Something clean. Something ours. Jin Woo. And then, when the dust settles, when I've dealt with every threat, when I've made sure you're safe. He raised her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles with infinite gentleness. I'm going to ask you properly. No duty. No family pressure. No impossible circumstances. No people trying to kill us. Just me asking if you'd consider giving us a real chance at a real life. Tears slid down Naomi's cheeks. I got shot for you. I think we're past consider. He laughed. A real laugh. The kind she'd only heard a handful of times in 2 years. Fair point. Valid point. But still, you deserve to be asked properly. Deserve to choose freely without blood and bullets and chaos everywhere. So that's what I'm going to give you. Choice. Freedom. Time. Whatever you need. What I need is for you to kiss me before the pain meds knock me out again. Naomi. That's an order, Mr. Park. He smiled, leaned in carefully, and kissed her. Gentle and sweet and full of promise. Full of all the things they'd never been able to say in 2 years of late-night conversations and stolen glances, and loving each other from a distance that had been killing them both slowly. When he pulled back, Naomi was smiling despite the pain radiating through her shoulder. Worth getting shot for. Please never say that again. My heart genuinely can't take it. She was fading fast now, the medication pulling her under like quicksand. Jinwoo. Yeah. Don't do anything stupid while I'm sleeping. Define stupid. Don't die. Don't get arrested. Don't start a war you can't win. I make no promises on any of those things. But his smile was soft, genuine. Rest. I'll be here when you wake up. I'm not going anywhere. You better be. She let the darkness take her, feeling safer than she'd felt in years. Because Jinwoo Park loved her. And he was finally free to do something about it. 3 days later, Naomi was cleared to leave the hospital with strict instructions. Rest, physical therapy, no strenuous activity for 6 weeks minimum, and follow-up appointments to ensure the wound was healing properly. Jinwoo had arranged everything with the kind of efficiency that would have been terrifying if it wasn't being directed at protecting her. A private room in his personal residence, not the family estate, but a secure apartment in downtown Seoul that he'd owned for years but rarely used. Round-the-clock medical care from a nurse who'd worked with bullet wounds before and didn't ask questions. Security that made the hospital's armed guards look like mall cops playing dress-up. This is too much, Naomi protested as Jinwoo helped her into the car. Her arm was in a sling, her shoulder heavily bandaged, but she could move, could function, could survive. I don't need all this. It's not enough. Jinwoo's voice was firm as he buckled her seatbelt with careful hands. You're in danger. Everyone knows you stopped the wedding, took a bullet for me, exposed Yunesio's murder plot. You've made powerful enemies. People who want revenge. People who see you as leverage against me. Because I love you. Because you love me. He kissed her forehead. Which is exactly why I'm keeping you alive at any cost. Losing you now, after everything, would kill me worse than any bullet or poison ever could. The drive took 30 minutes through Seoul's afternoon traffic. Naomi watched the city pass by her window. The city she'd grown to love. The place where she'd found and nearly lost everything that mattered. What happened to Yunesio? She asked quietly. You said she was in custody. Where is she now? Jinwoo's expression darkened. She's been dealt with. That's not ominous at all. She's alive. Barely. And she's been sent back to her family in disgrace with evidence of everything she did. His voice was cold. The engagement is off. The alliance is dead. The Song family is scrambling to distance themselves from the assassination attempt and the poison plot. They're offering reparations, trying to avoid a war they know they'd lose. Are you going to accept? I'm considering it. Depends on how cooperative they are with information about my father's involvement. He glanced at her. Speaking of which, my father. What about him? Is no longer my father in any way that matters. Jinwoo's voice went even colder. I've removed him from all business operations. Frozen his accounts. Seized his properties. Made it very clear that if he ever comes near me again, if he ever threatens you or your grandmother, I'll expose every illegal thing he's ever done and watch him die in prison. He can live out his retirement in comfortable exile or in a cell. His choice. That's harsh. He tried to have me killed for money and power. For a better deal with the Song family. He was willing to sacrifice his own son. Jinwoo's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I'm being merciful by letting him live at all. Naomi reached over with her good hand, touched his arm. I'm sorry. I know he's terrible, but he's still your father. He stopped being my father the moment he signed a contract that included my death as a bargaining chip. Jinwoo's jaw clenched. But enough about him. I want to talk about us. About what happens next. Us. I've been thinking. A lot. About what I want for my life. For our lives. He glanced at her. I want out. Out of what? Out of this life. The crime. The violence. The constant looking over my shoulder wondering who's going to try to kill me next. His voice was serious, intense. I've been building legitimate businesses for years. Technology companies, real estate investments, international trade ventures. They're profitable. Legal. Clean. I could walk away from the family business entirely and be more than fine. Better than fine, actually. Naomi's heart started racing. You're serious. Completely serious. I've spent my entire life trapped by duty and fear and my father's expectations. Doing what was expected instead of what I wanted. Following rules that were killing me slowly. He looked at her. But you took a bullet for me. You risked everything when you had every reason to walk away. You chose me over safety, over logic, over self-preservation. That kind of love deserves more than I can give you in this world. So I'm leaving it. Jinwoo, you can't just walk away from. I can. I am. The infrastructure is already in place. I've been planning this for 2 years, ever since I realized how much I hated what my life had become. I just needed a reason strong enough to actually pull the trigger. He smiled. You're my reason. The question is. He reached over, took her hand. Will you leave with me? The car stopped. They'd arrived at his apartment building. Sleek, modern, expensive, but not ostentatious. Security cameras everywhere. Guards in the lobby. Safe. Think about it, Jin-woo said as his security team opened the car door. No pressure. No timeline. No expectations. Just think about what you want. Really want. Not what duty demands, or fear dictates, or other people expect. What your heart wants. My heart wants you, Naomi said simply. That's never been the question. Then we'll figure out the rest together. He helped her out of the car and into the building. The apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River, modern furniture that somehow managed to feel warm instead of sterile, and a guest room that had clearly been prepared with care and thought. This is yours, Jin-woo said, showing her the room. Private bathroom, queen bed, medical supplies in the closet. Call button by the bed that goes directly to the nurse's station and to me. And this, he handed her a phone, is yours too. New number. Untraceable. Encrypted. Programmed with my number, hospital emergency contacts, and your grandmother's number. My grandmother is fine. Better than fine, actually. I've had security watching her in Atlanta since the wedding. Just as a precaution. He smiled at her expression. What? You think I'd forget the woman who raised the person I love? I've also paid off all her medical bills, set up a trust fund for her care, and arranged for a security detail that looks like friendly neighbors. Naomi felt tears building. You're too much. I'm not enough. But I'm trying. He guided her to the bed, helped her sit carefully. Rest. I'll be in the living room if you need anything. The nurse will check on you every 2 hours. And Naomi. Yeah. Thank you. For saving my life. For loving me. For being brave enough to choose us even when it was impossible. We're not impossible anymore. No, we're not. He left her alone to rest. And Naomi lay back on the most comfortable bed she'd ever experienced. Her mind spinning with possibilities she'd never let herself imagine. A life with Jin-woo. A real life. Not stolen moments and late-night conversations, but actual mornings waking up together. Actual plans for the future. Actual freedom to love without hiding or fear or people trying to kill them for it. It felt like a dream. Too good to be true. Which is probably why she wasn't surprised when she heard raised voices from the living room an hour later. Jin-woo's voice, sharp with anger. I told you never to come here. I told you we were done. Another voice, older, dripping with menace and entitlement. You don't give me orders anymore, boy. I made you. I can unmake you just as easily. Naomi's blood went cold. Jin-woo's father had found them. She struggled to her feet, ignoring the pain screaming through her shoulder like fire. Crept to the door, opened it just enough to see into the living room. Jin-woo stood facing his father, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and eyes like ice, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than everything Naomi had ever owned combined. Between them, the tension was thick enough to choke on. Get out, Jin-woo said, his voice deadly calm. Now, before I have security throw you out. Not until we settle this. You've embarrassed me, humiliated the family, destroyed alliances that took decades to build. His father's voice rose. And for what? For that American maid? For a woman who's beneath you in every possible way. Her name is Naomi, and she's worth more than your entire empire. More than you've ever been worth. She's nothing. A nobody who got lucky and spread her legs at the right time. The slap echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. Jin-woo had moved faster than Naomi thought possible, his hand connecting with his father's face with a crack that made her flinch even from across the room. Say her name again, Jin-woo said quietly, dangerously. Give me one more reason. Please. His father staggered back, hand to his reddening cheek, shock and rage warring on his face. You dare strike your own father. You stopped being my father the moment you tried to have me killed. The moment you valued money over my life. The moment you looked at me and saw profit instead of your son. Jin-woo's voice was ice and fury. You tried to have me murdered. Your own son. And you think you still have authority over me? You think I owe you respect? I never tried to kill you. I just arranged a mutually beneficial marriage that would have strengthened both families. You knew. You knew Yoon Seo was planning to poison me. You knew about the attack at the wedding. You knew everything. Jin-woo moved closer, each step deliberate. And you let it happen because dead, I'm worth more to you than alive. Dead, you get to control my empire. Dead, you get your merger with the Song family without my interference. Dead, you don't have to deal with a son who might have opinions or feelings or a conscience. You have no proof. I have Yoon SEO in custody who's told me everything to try to save her own skin. I have financial records showing payments between you and Song's father. I have emails. I have communications. I have recordings. Jin-woo smiled without humor. I have everything. The only question is what I do with it. His father's face went ashen. If you expose me, you expose yourself. The family. The business. Everything. I don't care about the family anymore. I don't care about the business. I care about her. Jin-woo gestured toward the guest room where Naomi stood frozen, barely breathing. And anyone who threatens her, anyone who tries to hurt her, anyone who even looks at her wrong, they answer to me. Personally, you're making a mistake. That girl will be your downfall. No, you are my downfall. She's my salvation. She's the first real thing I've had in my entire life. His father's expression shifted from rage to something colder, more calculating. Fine. Keep your whore. Abandon the family. Walk away from everything I built for you. But know this, when you fail, when your legitimate businesses collapse, when you realize you need the family's resources and connections, there will be no coming back. I'll make sure every door is closed to you. Every opportunity gone. You'll have nothing. I'll have her. That's more than you've ever had. More than you'll ever understand. His father straightened his jacket, gathering what dignity he had left. He started toward the door, then paused. Looked directly at Naomi where she stood half hidden by the guest room door. You think you've won something, he said to her, his voice dripping with contempt. You think saving his life makes you special, makes you worthy. But you're just another mistake in a long line of mistakes. Another weakness to be exploited. And mistakes always get corrected eventually. Always. Leave, Jin-woo said, his voice dropping to something inhuman. Something that promised violence. Now, before I kill you myself and deal with the consequences later. His father left. The door slammed behind him with a finality that echoed through the apartment like thunder. Jin-woo stood in the middle of the living room, breathing hard, fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. He looked like he might explode or collapse or both. Naomi stepped out of the guest room despite the pain, despite the exhaustion. Jin-woo. He turned, saw her, and his expression crumbled. You heard all that. Every word. She walked to him carefully, each step sending shocks through her injured shoulder. And you know what I think? What? I think your father is absolutely terrified. Because you just walked away from everything he built. Everything he controlled. Everything he used to manipulate you. She reached him, took his hand. And he has no power over you anymore. None. You're free. He can still hurt you. Hurt your grandmother. Make our lives hell. Let him try. Naomi squeezed his hand. We're not alone. We're not weak. And we're sure as hell not going to let a bitter old man destroy what we've fought for. Jin-woo pulled her close, carefully, mindful of her injury, and buried his face in her hair. When did you get so brave? When I fell in love with a man worth being brave for. He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promises about futures they'd build and battles they'd fight, and a life that was finally theirs to control. When they pulled apart, both were crying. What happens now? Naomi whispered against his chest. Now. Jin-woo smiled through the tears. Now we disappear for a while. Let things settle. Give you time to heal. I'll finish transferring my legitimate businesses to offshore accounts my father can't touch. And then we figure out what our life looks like. Together. Free. Ours. I like the sound of that. So do I. They stood in the middle of the living room, holding each other, two people who'd found love in impossible circumstances and somehow, against all odds, survived long enough to claim it. But outside the apartment building, in a car hidden in the shadows across the street, Jin-woo's father made a phone call with shaking hands. It's done. He's chosen her over the family, over everything. And the girl, a voice asked from the other end of the line, is the weakness we exploit. He loves her. Truly, desperately loves her. Which means she's perfect leverage. She's how we break him. When do we move? Soon. Let them think they're safe first. Let them believe they've won. Let them settle into their little fantasy of a normal life. His father's voice turned cruel. Then we take everything. We destroy her. And we watch him break. Maybe then he'll understand that you don't walk away from family. Not ever. The call ended. And in the darkness, plans were made that would test Jin-woo and Naomi in ways they couldn't imagine. Ways they weren't prepared for. Because love, in their world, was the most dangerous weapon of all. And everyone who'd ever wanted power knew it. Comment below part 3 if you need to know what happens next, because this story is far from over. Hit that subscribe button and smash that like, because part 3 is going to reveal threats you never saw coming and choices that will break your heart. This is True Soul Stories, and we're just getting started with this love story. The war hasn't even begun yet.